So you notice those pictures on the bumps in the road from the bottom page? It's kind of funny. Those pictures made me laugh. Now, when you're going through your first fight, it's not humorous at all. And when you're going through a fight, it's painful. But those pictures there with the guy and the fumes and the other man, he's actually saying road trip from hell on the middle picture there. And that's really what you feel like. But I was encouraged because I don't remember what our first fight was at all. I don't remember.
I don't either.
That tells you the significance of it. Now, you might remember. It could be truly that significant. But what I do remember, and what I still remember, is the emotional pain. The emotional pain it brings, the process of going through the fight, the communication or lack thereof. It's hard. It's difficult. It's painful. It's necessary, but it's painful. But I will say in the midst of that, hindsight is good too, to laugh, like I had to laugh. I don't remember our first fight. So how significant really was it? It seemed very significant at the time. So you have to almost remind yourself of hindsight as well as, your progression as a couple when you're going through those bumps in the road. Peter and Dorothy were some friends of ours back in Beecher, and they'd been married 49 years, and they said, we rarely have ever fought in our whole 49 years. I can't remember us fighting at all. And I'm like, seriously? Most people are not in that category, I will tell you right now. Most people have had fights, need to have fights in order to work things out, need to communicate their frustrations or be willing to go through that pain in order to get to the other side. It will make your relationship so much healthier and stronger when you don't hold things back and you don't, you just don't hold things back is the bottom line. Be committed to work hard for resolve. I think that would be the word that I would say for the first fight or the fights that come after that, and to know that they're inevitable, right? It's going to happen. You're going to disagree. Recently a man said to us, it's okay to disagree. It really is okay to disagree. It's not okay to be disagreeable. So what is the end goal that you are seeking? Just your own way? I think what was hard for me and still continues after 31 years to be hard is I tend to take things personally. So for me, I couldn't get over the idea of it being not about me and keeping it more objective. And I think men are actually better and more equipped to see things objectively, and they don't necessarily sometimes connect with the fact that most women take things very personally. And you have to almost say, what has helped in our relationship is Eric has said, I don't mean anything, personally against you about this, or maybe I'm wrong on this. He prefaces a lot now. He has learned through time. You got to preface, because I, as you've heard, didn't have confrontation at all. My dad only he had a very bad temper, and he only yelled a lot. And my mother said absolutely nothing. So that's the context I come from. But no confrontation in a healthy way. So I was never confronted as a child, and the only confrontation I saw was extremely volatile. So, that just made me, shrivel. And so he has learned, hey, I might be wrong, don't mean anything by this, we may need, help me understand. Oh, that's a huge one. That's a huge one. Help me understand. Or am I reading this right? Or ask a question to make sure you really do hear. As a woman, this has helped me. I ask if I'm doing it right. I ask, do you mean this? Is this what you mean? Clarify, clarify, clarify. And communication, you're just always having to work with that. That's something that is such a breakdown in so many relationships. It just needs to be constantly, encouraged. And so the rules for a good argument with your lover. I guarantee you if you do this, it will really help your relationship. Because what you're doing is you're setting some guidelines, some rules of engagement before it happens. Because your emotions, when something happens and you're disagreeing about something and you're fighting about something, you're not all there. Your emotions are all over the place. And depending on, your past experience and your spouse's past experience, your emotions are going to be all over. So the number one is stick to the main issue. And for people who struggle with confrontation, who struggle with holding and harboring, there's usually two kinds of people, ones that just want to get it all out there, and the opposite that want to not confront at all. And those are kind of extremes, but you usually are in one of the two camps. And so main issue, the hardest thing about this is that if you harbor everything and then you just spit it all out, like you're going to deal with 10 things at the same time, and that's like, oh my goodness, you're setting yourself up for failure, really. And so one issue, really try hard to just deal with one thing at a time. Even if you've allowed 10 things to build up, let's work on one right now. That's very helpful. Take time to cool off. Again, opposites attract. There's usually one that just wants to deal with it now, get it over with. I'm done. I want to see resolve. I want to fix it. It's usually a guy, but not always.
What?
And then a woman, it's like, no, I need time. I need time to process it. I need time to journal. What is really bothering me anyway? I don't even know yet. So I'm going to, write on a napkin and then burn it. I don't know. But, that's me. That's my mode of journaling. I'm not a journaler. Eric is the journaler. But I'm more, I just got to write it down. It doesn't matter what you write it down on. What matters is that you're writing it down and you're really understanding what is upsetting me anyway. That's what I've had to do anyway. Number 3, so after you've cooled down, that really helps. Walk, run, ride, whatever it takes to just kind of back off a little bit. It's a discipline. I'm tempted to want to tell you off right now, but I'm going to back off because I love you that much. I'm going to back off a little bit, and I'm going to give you some time to breathe. Then make sure you do come back, though. That's a big deal. And then number 3, reflect and write out your thoughts. That's the journaling part. Whatever you need, if you've got a journal and you are very diligent every day in it, that's great. But if you're not, a napkin works. So take time to reflect and write out your thoughts. Number 4, set another time to discuss the issue in a more congenial setting. The only question I would have in this is for those people who tend to put things off. Some people just want to do it now, and that could work. But other times, you got to put it off. What I have seen, a detriment to this, the only caution is that couples will, if somebody tends to not want to deal with it, they'll just put it off forever. So make sure you set a time and a date, and you commit to that, to come back to talk about it. Otherwise, you're just going to never deal with it and just move on and somehow hope that it goes away. Hope that the new car smell comes back somehow, kind of thing. Number 5, seek the counsel of others who have more maturity, experience in their marriage. As an older person now, I can totally relate to this in the sense that we have always learned so much from people that have gone before us, just in their wisdom, in their counsel, in their instruction. And what I have learned is it's not that they've done everything right. It's that they have a hindsight. So really, the church is a great place to find someone that you respect that's gone the next level at least ahead of you in their marriage journey and learn from them. It's so invaluable. It can save you so much heartache if you just take the time to listen to their counsel. Because it's hindsight, and all of us have been there where we can look back and we can see a different perspective because it's the past. And so value that in the church as well as in other contexts. Maybe you have family or friends that are in that too. Set aside issues and go to bed without anger. I like the NLT version of Ephesians 4:26. Don't sin by letting anger control you. Sometimes you have to wait. Maybe you're tired, and that is the worst time to deal with something, okay? So maybe you're just tired and you need to let it go. But don't go to bed with the anger on your heart, the resentment, the bitterness. If there's one prayer that I think is a great one when it comes to fighting, is to make sure you are guarding your heart against bitterness, against resentment, against harboring things that are going to hurt your marriage instead of help it. And like I said, it can be painful, but it's worth the journey.
Do you remember your first financial fight?
Speaking of fights.
The statistics say that one of the major reasons that couples fight is money. Money's the big area that we fight about. So, do you remember that first financial fight? Well, Philippians chapter 4, 10 through 13 gives us some guidance, I think, as we think about money. Paul says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you've renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you've been concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. He's talking about the church caring for him financially. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or want. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. Pastor Humbert married us. He was a man who left the banking industry, and he planted a church in the south side of Chicago. And we had our wedding there, and we didn't get a pre-marriage counseling from him, but just before the ceremony, there were two things he said to me, and one was, it was very interesting. He looks across this big old desk and he says, Are you sure you want to go through this? He says, you can go if you need to. This is the time to go. He was like saying, if you want to go, this is the time to go. I'm not going anywhere. Second bit of advice he said was, live within your means. Mm-hmm. Turn to your spouse and say that. Live within your means. Not within Visa's means, not within MasterCard's means. Live within your means. Be very, very careful about that. This sense of contentment is so important. My Uncle Juan, I have Hispanic roots, by the way. My dad was named Elias Maldonado Tober. My Uncle Juan is going to turn 80 years old soon in December. He has two retirements. One is from 20 years in the Army. The other is from the state of Washington. Lives out in Seattle, Washington. He owns several apartment buildings, and several years ago he made investment in a little-known stock called Microsoft. While we were visiting Uncle Juan a number of years ago, he took us to a restaurant that was on the water there, and a man came through who was an acquaintance of Uncle Juan's, not really a friend, but you could say an acquaintance, and as a single guy, and he walks up to the table and he invites us to take a ride on what is essentially a speedboat yacht, one of those like cigarette speedboats, only it's a luxury one. I mean, I didn't even know they made these things. And it shows you what world I'm part of. And so we went on this. It was beautiful. He had food and stuff that you could eat there as we're zipping along. And he's trying to talk to my Uncle Juan and encourage him to become part of the group, right? You need to buy yourself a cigarette boat too and join the club. Uncle Juan's like, no, that's fine. Later on, as we were getting in the car and we had already thanked the man, got off the boat, my Uncle Juan made this statement. He said, yeah, he's trying to tempt me to get into that group. He said, but I've learned to live. His actual phrase was, I need to live in my world. I need to live. Can I be content to live in my world? Well, let's be honest. Some people have more money than we do. We have more money than some other people. And we need to learn to just simply live within our world. And then to take what we have and to give it back. Got some couples here I want you to tell. What do we do with our money? Abraham and Sarah, David and Bathsheba, Solomon and all his wives, they all had great wealth, but they also had problems with that. And sin got to them. And what do we do with our money? Well, first of all, do we tithe? Do we give our money to the Lord? Do we honor him with the first fruits? Do we have that sense of together we're not serving ourselves, we're serving Jesus. We're seeking to follow him, and we're giving. And one of those things that communicates giving is from our money. Young couple in Fairfax, remember Mark and Kathy, they sold everything. They had this clunker old Honda as a young couple, and they sold everything, and he became a millionaire literally overnight because of some real estate deals he was launching into business. But he would tell everybody in his company, we're in business to fund missions. He was heavily involved in the bus ministry in the D.C. area there that we had. Middle-aged couple in Wilton, Connecticut, where we were. We did a church plant up there in Connecticut. He was head of advertising for Time magazine. He would rent 747s to wine and dine clients on the way to football games. It's not my world. But he was heavily involved in missions. Missions was what he was about, and he was really strong. And so you can have a lot, or you can have a little, or whatever your might be, but where is your money going? Retired couple in Beecher, Illinois. I remember we had this little church, 17 people we started with, little building about seat maybe 100 people, 25 parking places. The building was built in 1908. I was 34. People had been sitting in those pews for 40 years. The average age was 65 and up when we started. God did amazing things there, young couples coming and growth and all of that. And we felt like we needed land. What do you think, It might be time to consider a building project. Last time you built was 1908. And so we started, of course, when you've been there long, how long, what do you think the response was when this young 34-year-old pastor was starting to say, let's pray about land? What do you think the response was? You're crazy. We've never done that before. It's not going to happen, blah, 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 blah. And that's just what happens. And then this man showed up, retired man, he and his wife, retired, came to the community, and he came to our Christmas Eve service. I followed up with a follow-up visit. He says, do you have any plans for the future? We had the most simple architectural drawing known to man. And I brought it to him and showed him, and I said, we're praying for 10 acres. 6 months later, in the basement of that little church, he leans up against the wall and says, well, I think I'll give you my 10 acres. It's on the primest road in the community. And they got 10 acres and built a beautiful building there. And there's about 400 people in that. That God grew that church and did amazing things because that couple. So young couple, middle-aged couple, retired couple. There was a young couple. This was an amazing thing to me. They were in graduate school. They didn't have a lot of money. But they were both of them were raised to save money to give. So we cast this vision to hire a second pastor, which would have been like a family pastor, to the church. They caught the vision. They finished their graduate program. They left the church in the sense that they went on with their life. So they left State College, and they left us with a gift of $20,000. I was like, where did you get $20,000? You guys don't have any money. You're graduate students. They'd been saving it the whole time they were there, going without this, going without that. It was the thrill of their life. This was seed money for something they would never even see. Amazing. So you don't have to be wealthy to be able to see that God can give. We were part of Marriage Inc. At Olivet Nazarene University in Bourbonnais, Illinois, and it was developed by a man who's fairly wealthy, but his motto is, I want to die broke. Now, all his obligations are taken care of. It's not that he's broke. He says, I don't want to die with money in my pocket. The Kern Foundation is a foundation that is in the state of Wisconsin. Pastor's kid, grew up on the north side of Milwaukee, grew up to be an engineer. Generac, you've heard of Generac? He's the owner of that. When Y2K came, he became a gazillionaire. And they've got tons of money that they give to seminaries and churches and mission projects and different things like that. He's up in years, but one of the stipulations he said was, you got to get rid of all that money before I die. Wants to give it away. Make the investment. Now, folks, here's the deal. If you were born in America, you already hit the jackpot. You already hit the jackpot. Now, I've been to India 4 times, northern India. They say that northern India, that quadrant there, is that's half the world's poor is in that area. Now, you come to me to India. Now, I understand there are wealthy people in India as well, but India is a whole other world, and that's poor. And there are no government programs for those folks. And they won't even let Christians now work to bring orphanages because they're afraid of our faith and our Christian faith there. But if you were born in America, you already live like a king upon this earth. So wherever it is, what are you giving? What are you giving with your money? How are you blessing the world around you, whether it's $10 or whether it's $10,000? Whatever it is that God has given you, that's a great blessing. I'm here today because my junior year, as I was getting ready to go into college, I had no money left. No money. And my crippled Uncle Charlie had saved money. And he said to me, Eric, don't stop going to college. You keep going. And he paid for my second year, my third year of college, my junior year of college. And I was able to continue on. I called him last night. I said, Uncle Charlie, we're going to this little place called Marshfield, Wisconsin. And we're going to do a marriage seminar tomorrow. But I want you to know, and I got a little dust in my eyes and dust in my throat. And I said, I just want to thank you. And you know what he said? He said, well, I just like to help people. Like, yeah. Uncle Charlie, never married, One hand's like this all the time. His legs are crippled. There's no teeth left in his mouth. He gets up and goes to work every day. Now, he empties a few garbage cans and he drinks coffee and gives orders to people who are doing work. But and they smile and laugh back at him. He's 81 years old.
Yep.
And he just likes to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And who is it that God wants you as a couple to help, to bless, to minister to? You got people in your life you can minister to. What are you going to do? We're going to take a break. And Scott, I think, has some instructions for you on that break.